What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Frankie'S Aquatics right here on the wonderful platform that is YouTube. Now, I hope you've all had a fantastic week. Last week's video was actually really well perceived. It was a day in the life of an axolotl breeder part 1, and I was really anxious about it. I'm quite a confident person in my day-to-day life. And there was something about it. I premiered it. Sounds good either way. And I just had this really weird feeling, like half an hour before the debut was set to happen. I had this really horrible feeling that nobody was going to turn out to watch it live, and I got really freaked out, and I don't know why. But you guys loved it. It was really good. I had about 30 people in the chat, all chatting, asking questions and enjoying the video, and it really gave me that boost. So thank you all so much if you're one of them. Now, this week's video was going to be part 2 of the Day in the Life of series, and unfortunately I've had to slightly postpone it. The world's gone a little bit crazy, and all the schools are shut, so I currently have my children off school at the moment, who are currently upstairs. So it makes it a little bit more tricky to record everything, because basically the first video I just recorded pretty much my whole day in regards to my hobby, and then I kind of edited it down into a half-an-hour video. And I really have thought about doing it this week for the second part, but unfortunately it's just too tricky. It's just too tricky, and rather than force it, I thought I'd write everything settled down, and then in the future there will be part 2, which will obviously be the tanks behind me and everything else that I do in the hobby throughout the day. So this week's video is still going to be a juicy one. It is Q&A. Some people look about, no, click it off. It's going to be a questions and answers video. Now, I really do enjoy it because it's really good engagement with my audience. And I personally really enjoy making these videos. And most of you do enjoy them too. Some of you absolutely love them and some of you not so much, which is absolutely fine. But hopefully I have rounded up quite a lot of questions. I put out the blinkers on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and all my other platforms, and I've received an awful lot of questions, which are, yes, I have printed them off, and yes, they are in a ridiculously large font, because my eyes are terrible. So without further ado, let's get cracking with this week's video, which is Frankie'S Aquatics Q&A part, I don't know, about 5, I don't even know. So that's a really good one, a pretty common mistake that I see. There's a few. Temperature, people overlook the temperature and the importance of keeping the temperature nice and low. That's probably the most common one. People assume if you just don't have a heater in it, it's cold water, but unfortunately that's not going to cut it for axolotls. They require it quite considerably lower. And a lot of people overlook that completely. But yeah, a temperature is absolutely vital for your axolotl's well-being. If the temperature goes a little bit too high for too long, you're going to have problems like fungus and stuff like that. I don't want to make this a preaching video, I just want to answer the questions. But yeah, probably temperature. Temperature is probably the biggest one that people massively overlook. And then second will probably be feeding, what to feed them. I have so there's some really interesting questionable choices that people choose in regards to an axolotl diet, but again, I won't go into that. So temperature and food. Now, this sometimes happens sooner, but usually around a year of age, an axolotl will reach sexual maturity. I think a year is quite a good safety guard to obviously be able to tell the sex of an axolotl. But usually around a year of age, your axolotl will be ready to get frisky. And that's when you can usually tell if you have a male or a female. Now, there are some late bloomers out there, so there are some males out there that don't show their tickle tackle, shall we say, for a little bit longer. So sometimes it swings and roundabouts, sometimes a year, sometimes it can take a bit longer. To tell the difference, the male, boom, will have a large swelling in between his back legs, which you can kind of guess without me having to say what that actually is. Whereas the female will show more of a bump, and it's more of a hidden bump too. So male and female, very easy to mix the two up, very easy, because when they're in the mood for love, the female will considerably swell too, and a lot of people mistake the males and the females quite frequently, me included. I'm terribly guilty of it too. Best food for your axolotl would have to be live food, or something equally as fresh like frozen bloodworm. Frozen bloodworms are good up until a certain age. A lot of people make the mistake of feeding frozen bloodworm into their adulthood and beyond, and unfortunately, in my opinion, again, it's just my opinion as a keeper and as a breeder, Bloodworm, you'll be forever feeding bloodworm if you stick to bloodworm and bloodworm alone, because they will need a lot of it to keep them full. They do get quite sizable, and bloodworm just won't cut it for very long. So as they're small and growing, it goes from baby brine shrimp, frozen bloodworm or live bloodworm, whichever you prefer. Then it goes to earthworms, and obviously you've got pellets as well. But if you want to know what's best, once they reach adulthood, earthworms or night crawlers are most certainly the best option for your axolotl. I know some people feed fish, some people feed prawns and shrimps and all that funky stuff. I don't go near any of that. I just stick to earthworms and the occasional pellet. There's no particular type or morph that are bigger than the others. Male and females tend to be of a different size. The females tend to be a bit more plumper, a bit more like a sausage, and the males can, or in my experience, tend to be a little bit longer and not so plump. So yes, it doesn't matter what type you've got or what morph you've got, they won't have a different size scale on that. You can, of course, obviously get axolotl tinies, which are adorably cute, but unfortunately, as a sensible breeder, they shouldn't be bred if you do happen to have a tiny. And yeah, just the best genetics moving forward so you don't saturate the hobby. So if you have a tiny, which is basically a dwarf axolotl, my strong suggestions would be to keep an eye on him health-wise, because they do unfortunately have quite a few health complications as they get older with their intestines and their organs, and be responsible and don't breed them. So to answer a short question, does a type distinguish a size? Absolutely not. Why is my axolotl broken? I don't know. Have you tried unplugging him and blowing and then popping him back in? I don't know. You need to put some batteries in him, new batteries. I would say give it a whack. What you do with a remote? Come on. I'll get hate mail if I said that. Don't hit your axolotl. He's just adapting. I feed my axolotls each and every day. I tend to go on each axolotl as an individual. So if an axolotl is looking for food, I will absolutely offer him or her food. If they're looking a little bit plump and full and a little bit floaty, it normally means they need a poop. So I'll keep them off food for a day, maybe two at a push. So yeah, it's a day-by-day case really. Obviously I have quite a substantial amount of axolotls. So I do feed in different patterns. It used to be, when I had a few, it was just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday off. And then Monday, Tuesday, same again the following week. But depending on the axolotl's age, size, appetite, it does differ. General rule of thumb is offer food if they're looking hungry. If they're looking a bit plump and floaty, it 9 times out of 10, I love that word, means they need a poo. So just give them a day or two off the food. You'll be right, you'll be good to go then, you will. You'll be good to go. How do you introduce two axolotls? So the little guidelines you need to follow is you need to make sure they're of a reasonable size. You can put them together when they're small. You're going to want to make sure they're of a reasonable size and are similar in size. They don't have to be identical. You can have one that's a little bit bigger than the other. And then you'll only ever find problems usually when they mistake each other for food, and that's when the nipping kind of happens. A lot of people write it off as aggression. It's really not. Axolotls tend to nip by curiosity. Curiosity kills the cat. It also nips the axolotls too. But if you do it when it comes to feeding, you might find a little bit of aggression when it comes to feeding. You'll normally find if you keep them in pairs, there's usually one that's a little bit more dominant than the other when it comes to food. The best way to tackle this is feed them in separate corners. So let's say this is my tank. I'll feed Pixel over here, for example, and then I'll feed, I don't know, Buddy over this corner. And then what will happen if you keep that axolotl to that corner and this one to that corner, believe it or not, you can actually train them to go to the corner when they're hungry. Which people go, Dad, get out of here, I don't believe you, but it is actually true. It does work, it takes a lot of time, but the proof is in the pudding. It does, take it from me, it does actually happen. Just a little bit of perseverance, a lot of time, a lot of practice. I tell you what, axolotls are a lot smarter than people give them credit for. Because they're an aquatic and people mistake them as a fish, I think people write them off, but they're really intelligent. You've just got to persevere and absolutely dedicate your time into training them. And believe me, you can have a really smart axolotl in your hands if you bear with them. Cloudy water can be down to a small handful of things. It can be caused by any uneaten food or poop that's got unnoticed and hasn't been cleaned up by the filter, and that breaks down, which causes a whole ammonia issue and all that, which can make your water cloudy. Most often it's uneaten food and poop that does actually cause it, to be honest. It can be down to a bacterial bloom if your tank is new and your cycle is starting. So how do you challenge this? How do you tackle it? Well, first thing, you're going to need to check your water parameters. You're going to need to know where you're at with your ammonia and your nitrates and your nitrites, because if they're in a bit of a cycle clash and the cycle's kind of establishing itself, you're going to get cloudy water. I have actually done a how to cycle a tank. It is going to be included in part 2 of my series video that I'm doing, so it is coming and you'll be pleased to know. But tank cycling is very important. Now, how you have to monitor your cycle and have to monitor your parameters, and obviously if you've got cloudiness from there, you're going to have to run part water changes to reduce and clear the cloudiness. So basically every Monday, if not Tuesday, depending on how busy I am, is water change day in this house. I mean, every day is a water change day in this house, to be perfectly honest. But Mondays are the big one for me. Mondays and Tuesdays are my big days where all my tanks from behind me to upstairs to everywhere will have a 20, 30, 40% water change depending on how bad the water is. I'm a bit of a boffin when it comes to tank cycling. My waters are literally on point. I'm one of these nerds that goes around and look at my waters. Look, they're lovely. It's all cycled and everything. And the wife's just like, ugh, and even the kids are yawning and walking away from me now. But I'm very proud of my water because tank cycling is confusing. And the reason it's confusing is because it's contradicting. Online there's very various ways you can do it. And it's kind of contradicting, and it's once you simplify it, it's not that complicated. And once you understand what you're doing with your water test kits, it actually becomes quite fun. I mean, I love it. I don't know, it's just me, I don't know, it's quite fun. So to answer your question, parts water changes, but do make sure you're checking and testing your water parameters too. Otherwise, you're going to have the same problem keep continuously repeating itself. Considering an adult axolotl gets to about this size, good size really, you put it's nearly as big as my head, you require a reasonably sized hide. Now, there's many things you can use for a hide. A lot of people assume I have to get an aquarium hide because it's an aquatic creature. Now, I personally don't particularly like aquarium hides for a handful of reasons. The first one is sometimes they're very cheaply made and they can cause all sorts of mischief, like scuffs and cuts and stuff on your axolotl's skin and gills, because they're just not very well finished. They look nice, but inside, where the axolotl will be hiding, it can cause all sorts of problems. So I tend to use my own, I use my initiative. So ceramic vases work great. Ceramic sealed vase, make sure it's sealed. If it's not sealed, it'll absorb water. So ceramic sealed vases work great, all different shapes, sizes, as long as there's nothing that can get stuck in. They work great if you just lie them down. Glass jars are an absolute winner chicken dinner. I can't recommend them enough. I don't know what it is about them, but if you pop a jar in with your axolotl over a space of a couple of weeks, they'll take to it, and they do love them. I don't know if it's the change in feel, because obviously the glass jars are different feeling to the substrate, but they do take to them and they do love them. You can train them to eat from your jar as well, which is an added bonus as well. And they just look great because they feel secure because they're hidden, but we can still see them because it's a glass jar. So it's a winner chicken dinner all around, really. So yeah, when it comes to picking the right hide, just make sure it's of a sensible size. The lovely Exoterra medium hides work great, but eventually they're going to outgrow them fairly quickly. So make sure you size up as they grow. Very good question. Not a question that gets asked quite a lot. I've been in the hobby of keeping aquatics pretty much since I was about 6 or 7. My mum and dad used to have quite a nice fish tank, a tropical fish tank, but it was made very clear that it wasn't mine, so I wasn't allowed to touch it. I see many fish come and go over the years of us keeping fish tanks. We always had a fish tank in the house, always, that and a dog. Not in the same kind of, it weren't a swimming dog. But yeah, we always had fish tanks, and obviously back then we were taught the hobby was ridiculous. If you wanted a fish, you could just go to your pet shop, pick up a bowl, pick up a goldfish, buy some really cheap, colourful gravel, and chuck your fish in it, and just go, best of luck to you, Mr. Goldfish. Thankfully, the hobby has come on heaps and bounds since then, and the hobby has progressed into what it is today. So basically, long story a bit shorter, I was never allowed to tinker about with my fish tank at home. I always wanted a fish tank of my own for my bedroom, but I think my mum and my dad always thought it was kind of a phase I was going through. It never was. I was obsessed with anything aquatic, really. So I never got my own fish tank. I wanted one with like a filter and a heater and all that, and I'd have properly looked after it, but I never had the chance or opportunity to do that. We had one in the house, and that was kind of it, really. And then when I got older and I moved out and I got my first fish tank, I started keeping better splendid to begin with. It's a Siamese fighter fish. And I remember ringing my dad up and I was like, guess what I've got? And I told him, and I remember him saying it wasn't just a phase then. And I says, no, I absolutely love them. So initially I was keeping Betta splendens to begin with. And then from there, I went on to keeping other tropical fish too. And then I kind of went on to obviously axolotls from there. Now, that doesn't mean to say I bought an axolotl on a whim. I basically, the very first time I ever seen an axolotl, I was in year 7 or 8 at school when we were in the library. And I remember flicking through an aquatic book and I just seen this really beautiful creature. I just remember seeing this really cute creature with gills, really fluffy gills. It was a black and white picture. I assumed it might have been grey in colour. The actual axolotl, but it turned out to be a leucistic type. And I remember just being obsessed with it. I remember getting the book out from the library and just reading the little small fact sheet that came with this little picture of an axolotl. And I was just amazed by it. I was like, wow. Never thought in a million months of Sundays that one day these would be available in the pet trade. And I was just in awe of the beauty of the big googly eyes and the almost lizard-like appearance, the reptile-like appearance almost. And there's these fluffy, floofy gills. It got to the point that when it came to me leaving, I'm going to admit something I've never admitted before here. When it came to me leaving that school, that same book that was only ever taken out by me over and over and over again, it was literally my stamp in there. I took it out one last time and I removed the picture. I basically got my scissors and I cut the picture and the little information stack out and I folded it up and I put it in my pocket and I took it home. This is long before the days of Google, or at least Google wasn't as freely available as it is now. And I just kept it. And then when I moved out of my parents' house, I actually found it and it kind of sparked my interest again. So I started doing a bit of homework on them. And by a bit of homework, I'm quite the guy that throws 110% at everything I do. I don't do anything on a whim. And yeah, I got really obsessed about them again. And if I ever bring anything up, the idea to somebody, you can guarantee I've already done months and months of homework in my head. I've done my homework and my research. And yeah, so when I kind of heard that axolotls were available in the pet trade and you could keep them as pets, I had to have one. I really did. And my first ever axolotl I actually owned myself was actually Pixel. I'd studied them for months. And then I found out that I could get some locally. So Pixel was actually from Bristol Axolotl. I have recommended this chap in a few of my videos. He does produce some absolutely stunning axolotls. And then the rest is history, really. I kind of got them. I instantly knew that this was my thing. This was my jam. Do you know when you listen to music and you're like, that's nice music, but you hear that one song that's your jam? And you're like, boom, that's my music, and you turn it up and you repeat it and you go obsessed with that one song. That was me in the hobby with axolotls. Once I'd found axolotls and they had a massive impact in my life, instantly, I just knew. I knew there and then that they were going to be more than just a pet. I knew there was more to it for me, and my future suddenly looked all that more brighter. As I just said, Pixel was originally my first ever axolotl, and she came from Bristol Axolotl. So that was sent to me by courier. Great service, straight to my door the following day. And then I went and I got Flick, and Flick was from a pet store chain actually. He came in a really bad state, bless him. He really did. I felt so sorry for him. He came really nipped up. His tail was really ragged, and still to this day it's not quite how it should be. He was missing a couple of toes. I think he was even missing one of his gill stalks. He was just in a really bad shape. Instantly felt ridiculously sorry for him. He must have been like the runt of the litter, shall we say. And I just felt really, really sorry for him. And then in the hobby, I started looking for other people that were doing what I was doing. And that's when I've met people like Cambridgeshire Axolotls. Ellie, her name is, lovely, lovely lady, who produces some of the finest golds I've ever seen. Golden albinos, beautiful golden albinos, hence where Marcel and Lolly are from. And yeah, the hobby is great. You just need to do your homework. They are available out there. Some states in America they're illegal, which is just crazy. But yeah, they are out there. You've got to look around. I think axolotls being a meme can only be seen as a good thing because it brings it to the attention of people that probably wouldn't see them otherwise. A bit like myself with the library book. If I hadn't found that library book that particular day, would I have found axolotls in the same way or a similar way that would have sparked my interest? Probably not, to be perfectly honest. So memes are great. The internet's a scary yet wonderful place. And if it scratches someone's itch, I'm all for new people coming up in the hobby. All I ask of anybody, people that come to me looking for axolotls, if if they've done absolutely no homework whatsoever, I'm not rude about it, but I do recommend they go away and do a bit of homework. I put them to my YouTube channel, watch some videos, hopefully pick up a few tips along the way, and just really get obsessed with it. Because I think once you're obsessed with something, it kind of really brings out the best in you. And yeah, that's kind of what I do. I kind of point people that way. So yes, the internet is full of wonderful memes, and Axolotl are definitely part of that. Do I think it's a bad thing? Probably not. No, I don't think it is. Do I enjoy it? I do. I do like seeing cute axolotls. I'm not gonna lie. I Google axolotls. Yeah, I'm a little bit obsessed to say the least. For me, axolotls are my happy place. I was in the hobby anyway, and then I had my health kind of fail me, and I had this really scary, daunting part in my life where I had to realise that maybe I might have to get rid of my axolotls, and I hate the thought of that. It just scares me. I just thought to myself, well, if I actually go properly blind, or blind enough to an extent where I can't do what I need to do, I can't possibly give my hobby to somebody else and go, you do it because I like axolotls, you can look after them for me. I couldn't put that on my wife, I couldn't definitely put that on my kids. I had a really scary kind of moment where I was thinking, if I can't do what I'm doing, because it's quite the job, what do I do? And thankfully I didn't have to come to that bridge, I didn't have to cross that bridge, because thankfully I'm still able to do what I once did. Maybe a lot slower, considerably slower than I probably was once upon a time, but I'm still able to do what I need to do. And I've progressed into a position now where I'm very fortunate to absolutely love what I'm doing. And although I'd like to think I've left my little stamp on the hobby so far, I've got a lot more to go. But my axolotls have helped me just as much as I've helped them, believe me. They've been an absolute rock in my life. And yeah, I don't know where I'd be without them. DC or Marvel? DC, absolutely DC, Batman all the way. I wasn't really big on comics as a kid. My best friend, Nick, he was pretty mad on X-Men, if I remember correctly. He had a bit of a crazy time going through his Wolverine stage. I remember every show and tell at school he'd bring his Wolverine figures in. And don't get me wrong, Marvel's great, but for me, I was more of a Batman. And we used to have this little argument that Batman isn't a real superhero because he just kind of got given his powers. He didn't get bit by a spider like Spider-Man. And I was like, he's still a superhero. We used to have this little banter. Funnily enough, to the point that even quite recently, a couple of years ago, we had this argument after a few beers. He kind of just sat there, having a few beers together. And you do know Batman ain't even really a superhero. And I went, let's not open this can of worms again, eh? Favourite book? Autobiographies. I love reading autobiographies because I tend to kind of get a feel for the person that I'm reading about. Russell Brand's book is quite interesting, to be honest with you. I know not everyone's a big fan of Russell, but for me, he's kind of an idol. He's a very intelligent individual, and I absolutely love his vision on the world, and I love how he perceives things, and I'm very entwined and in tune with that myself. I used to work at an ironmonger's, which basically I used to sit at a machine and they used to bend handles for toolboxes. It sounds dreadfully boring, it really was. The temperature was rocketing high, and I used to sit there and you have to have safety equipment on and gloves and big boots and a hard hat on. I'd literally sit there putting my hand in buckets of this liquid, pulling out these steel handles, popping them in a machine and then pressing them down and bending the handle. I'm tired just thinking about it. It was so boring. Oh, it's so boring. I used to work at Thornton's, but you could eat the chocolate there, so that was a bit of a highlight. I wanted to work with animals. I wasn't quite sure how. I always convinced myself I wanted to help animals, so the instant thing I got pigeonholed in by school was a vet. Be a veterinary surgeon. And then the realisation that sometimes it wasn't always flowers and roundabouts and swingy things and happy things. It was sometimes horrible stuff like having to end lives and stuff like that, and euthanize animals. I was just like, no, I don't like the idea of that, you know. And it kind of put me off. I always wanted some involvement with animals. I've always been quite obsessed. As a kid, I used to be the kid that'd always find the stray dogs and bring them home and try and find their home. Injured cats, I had a thing with birds. I used to be really good with birds. I remember we lived in Littleover, which isn't too far from where I live now in Derby. And there was a pigeon that had been in the area for a long time. It had lost quite a lot of weight. The RSPCA had been out to try and catch it, couldn't catch it. The shopkeeper couldn't catch it. I tried everything, but this bird was just outsmarting people. So I kind of gone out there, I said, give me 10 minutes and I'll catch it. They were like, you won't. I said, I will. And I basically sat there where it kept coming and landing, and I just pretended I was eating something. And every time the bird, the pigeon looked what I was doing, I kind of turned away. And then I kept eating it. And then the pigeon's going like, well, what's he got? And you can see him looking over, and then I turned away again. And after about 10 minutes of me doing that, I kind of pretended to offer him some. And at first he was a little bit like, nope. And then he kind of came over because the curiosity got the better of him. And then gently popped my hand out, and he actually sat on my hand, and I just scooped him up with my hands and I got him. So yeah, I always knew I wanted to work with animals, and God bless, here I am today doing just that. I really, really, really want to work in the conservation side of this though. So amphibian conservation is something I really want to participate in, so watch this space. I think this is the last question. How long do you spend cleaning your axolotls? I spend so much time. It's never like one job. It's a continuous job. So if I'm going about doing what I'm doing, if I ever see looking at tank and there's a little bit of poo or a little bit of uneaten food or whatever it might be, I'm straight in there with my turkey baster. Essentially, I'm making my life easier long term. I know it's a little bit of a finicky thing going in every 5 minutes, like lifting the lid off, getting in there. But I find if you keep the waters crystal, then you have to do that by spot cleaning, consistently spot cleaning. So if you were to compress everything a day, you're looking at a good 6, 7, maybe more hours. That's not even exaggerating either, from cleaning to feeding. Yeah, it's a big job. It's a big job, but I'm blessed to be in a position to do it as my main focus of my day. This is what I do. So I'm blessed in that respect. But yeah, I love it. And I think if you find something you're passionate about, it's not really work, is it? If it's something that kind of makes your heart tick and makes this kind of wake up and keep you on track, then it can't really, although it is physically demanding, it's not really hard at the same time. I love what I do. I absolutely love it, and I'm hoping to be around for many, many years to come to express and experience it with you all. So I think I've covered everything. I've literally jotted down, whilst I was recording, I had more questions coming through, so I've been scribbling them onto this piece of paper to obviously try and answer as many questions as I could. I hope it hasn't been too boring. I know it's a little bit of a slow pace compared to last week's video. And like I said, the coronavirus has completely thrown everything out the window at the moment. Life has gone crazy, and I'm sure I'm not alone in saying that. So on that respect, I hope you're all well. I hope you're all looking after yourself. It's a very, very scary time right now. It really is. But at the same time, in the same breath, it's makes you reevaluate your life and makes you appreciate the little things a little bit more. Life in itself is a pretty special gift. It's something we all take for granted, and what we have to remember is we don't own this world, we are occupying the world. And I think we have to treat people in it, the animals that we live with, and the planet in its entirety with the respect that it deserves. And I think it's time we looked out for each other a little bit more and kind of appreciated that this is something that's very scary for us all collectively, but it's only us that can fix it. Thank you all so much for stopping by and checking out this week's video. I did do a little promise on an Instagram live. If you don't follow me on Instagram, you should go and follow me on Instagram, because I do live videos on there where I just kind of like interact with you all, which I really enjoyed. I've done 2 so far, and they were really fun. And I also promised I would give away an exclusive white t-shirt, this one in particular. So when I had these 2 prototype t-shirts made, I had a black one made, which is this one I'm wearing now, and I also had a white one made as well. And I said to myself, I'll like rotate the 2, but I just took to the black t-shirt. I kind of like it. It's a nice fit, kind of goes with my image. It's kind of stuff I'd wear anyway. I was going to mention somebody in the video today to win it, but I'm going to give it up to one of you guys. So if you're one of the people in the live streams and you're one of my subscribers, do leave a little comment below and I will select one lucky winner. This is a one-off t-shirt. This t-shirt will not be made in white. So if you are lucky enough to actually win this, you'll be the only person on the planet, including myself, that will have a white t-shirt. Even I won't have a white t-shirt. So you can't get much more. The only issue you're going to have is it's in big guy size, because obviously it was to fit me. So yeah, during this scary period too, I also want to leave a few links in the description below of YouTubers that I know personally and I really enjoy their content. And so yeah, while we're in this lockdown and we're all behaving ourselves and staying indoors, I assume the watch time on YouTube is going to spike. So these guys below are people I either know myself personally or people within the hobby that I consider friends and people that I actually think you guys would enjoy watching too. So do be sure to click a few links down below and check out their content. And if you do go over there, do let them know that I sent you. Thank you all for stopping by and checking out this week's video. Stay safe, and until next week, ta-ta for now. Woo! I feel like I've been talking a lot today. I'm sorry if it felt like I was doing a lot of talking. I do tend to natter on quite a lot when I get going. I do. I'm like the wind, baby. Will never stop. Shall we sing? There comes a time when we hear a certain call, when the world must come together. No, just me then. I can't say I didn't try. Tried my best there as well.
Oh,